Hello everybody and welcome once again to an Unearthly Podcast. We've got here Randy, Thomas, and Matt. Flynn hasn't been able to make it, but we're hoping he's going to make it in.
We'll wait and see.
Yep, for those of you just tuning in, an Unearthly Podcast is a Star's End production in association with Mad Inc. and Fireheart Inc. Today we're talking about who would win, a Sour Patch Kid or a Jelly Baby.
I think the Jelly Babies win.
We're actually talking about the Fifth Doctor adventure, Earthshock.
Alright. The Fifth Doctor and his companions, Tegan, Nyssa, and Adric, materialize in a cave on Earth in the 25th century. Adric is having a bit of a snit about wanting to return to his own home in the E-space, another reality. The Doctor doesn't want to do this because going there is very dangerous. So Adric decides to stay in the TARDIS and try to work a way to convince the Doctor to take him home, while the Doctor and the others go out and explore. Turns out there's been a series of murders in this cave. And there's a military unit currently investigating the deaths. They run into the Doctor, accuse the Doctor of being the bad guy, at which point they're attacked by the real bad guys who turn out to be androids. The androids seem to be protecting this plate on a wall, which the Doctor eventually gets into and discovers it's a bomb. After a little bit of hairiness, they defuse the bomb, which was being activated remotely from a signal going somewhere in space. The Doctor, his companions, and a good chunk of the military force all decide to track this signal back into space, but they discover it's on a freighter, bound for Earth. The Doctor goes out and investigates, gets captured by I guess the chief of security on the ship, I'm not really sure what his position was, and taken to the captain. After which, the bad guys come out, which turns out to be the Cybermen. The Cybermen have this nasty evil plan to... Originally it was going to kill the population of Earth with a bomb, but failing that, they're going to turn the ship into a big bomb and crash it into the Earth, destroying this peace conference that would have destroyed the cyber fleets. So, they proceed to start taking over the ship bit by bit. This doesn't take them long, as most of the defenders of the ship are not military, and their attempts to destroy the Cybermen are pretty much futile. The Doctor manages to stop them briefly on the bridge, but only for a few minutes before they come in, capture everybody, rig the ship so it's stuck on course, protected by a series of blocks, and then forces the Doctor and Tegan back onto the TARDIS, which he's going to use to watch the sparks fly. Adric is forced to remain on the ship. It's not long before they manage to subdue the two Cybermen there, and Adric thinks he can undo these logic locks to get them to control the ship back. He manages to remove two of them. The first one begins the ship drifting backwards in time. And then they go back about 65 million years, where the Doctor realizes that this is part of history, that the ship crashing into the Earth is actually the extinction of the dinosaurs. However, Adric refuses to leave because he thinks he can actually trigger the third lock and save the ship and everybody. Unfortunately, he doesn't do this, and the ship explodes. The Cybermen are foiled. Pretty much end of the story. The show actually ends with a scene of Adric's broken badge for mathematical excellence, and it's the only time in Doctor Who history where there is no end music. It's absolute dead silence. It's probably one of the most tragic moments ever in Doctor Who history.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've done the summary, can I give a little backstory?
Time for backstory.
This episode was written for the 1982 broadcast season of Doctor Who. It is the first time the Cybermen had appeared since 1975.
Which sadly was actually kind of a weak sauce episode.
But that episode, the previous episode, Revenge of the Cybermen, was the first time the Cybermen had appeared since the second Doctor episode, The Invasion. in late 1968.
Which was epic and has an animated copy out on DVD.
Right,
But not the point,
the
Matt.
second Doctor
That
how many
means-
times?
They fought him at least 4 times, I think.
That means, though, other than the one-off episode, it had been almost 14 years since the Cybermen had been a regular Doctor Who villain. Now, what this meant for the production staff is that most of the people that are watching didn't really know who the Cybermen was.
The few that did had like maybe the art books or something, or some clip note picture books from older episodes.
Written until after this episode came out, Matt.
Actually, I heard a lot of little kids knew what Cybermen were, but hadn't seen them in a really long time.
Yes. So this gave the production staff, which was John Nathan Turner, a chance to remake the Cybermen for the 80s. And boy did they do so. They completely redesigned the Cybermen outfits, changed the voices of the Cybermen. Again, this wasn't unusual since almost every incarnation has had a change in either voice or outfit or both.
Mm-hmm.
This was also the first episode that featured David, did someone order a large ham, Banks as the Cyber leader, a role he would do in The Five Doctors, Attack of the Cybermen, and Silver Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much through the end of it. This is the man who tried to coin the phrase "excellent" as a Cybermen catchphrase.
He tried his darndest, darn it.
I actually counted when I watched this episode today.
Mr. Burns in that regard.
David Banks said excellent 6 times over the course of this serial.
So at least once every serial episode.
No, well, the Cybermen really weren't in the first episode, serial episode, except for a blurb at the end of the first episode where, you kind of realize they're the big bads. The dramatic reveal.
Destroy them.
That's
Destroy them at once.
basically cut to the scene through the android's eyes, and they zooming in on the Doctor's face. It's like, destroy them! That's all that was there. But the second serial, he said it twice. The third one, he said it twice. And the fourth one, he said it twice. So he was really working hard to make that a catchphrase.
And he probably continued to do it so in his preceding episodes, at least a couple of times.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the episodes?
What?
On the serial in general,
Yes.
the
Yes.
6-parter.
Yes.
It's actually one of the few Doctor Who serials I actually own for the classic Who, and to be honest, it was my first and I quite liked it. There's a few minor little ticks here and there, but generally and overall, there are a hell of a lot worse episodes from classic Who. So I'd range this just above mid-range.
Bill?
I would pretty much agree with Matt. I mean, I went into this knowing pretty much all that I knew about it was that Flynn did not like it. I did not realize until toward the end of it that it had been the one that you had been discussing about. I'm not sure if I had realized that it had been the one you were discussing about Adric dying and whatnot. But
Said this was the first time you'd seen Adric?
yes.
Which makes his end episode your first episode. Which means
Actually, it was mine too.
watching the rest of those episodes now because you know how it ends.
Actually, that was the same with me too originally. Because again, I got this. This was my first DVD, and then I finally went back and watched all the old
It was
stuff.
the same thing. I started watching the first Doctor knowing how he would end and knowing how Susan would end and such, but...
Any thoughts, Thomas?
Any thoughts, Thomas?
Let's see. I think I'm the same too. That this is the first actual, obviously new. I think I've seen like bits and pieces of other stuff Adric had been in, but that was probably just in like reviews that Nash had done or something.
Oh, that's right. I
Maybe.
did. Well, yeah. If you're gonna mention Nash, I did know of Adric through Nash's review of what's it called?
That doesn't help.
The regeneration episode. I haven't seen the episode myself. That's why the name.
Logopolis?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I thought Logopolis was the one preceding that.
Well, basically Logopolis and Castrovalva are the regeneration episodes.
I wasn't 100% sure though.
Yeah, Castrovalva's the Peter Davidson end, where Logopolis is the Tom Baker end.
Part,
not end.
I had first heard of Adric through Nash's review of Castrovalva, and I was wondering why there was a kid with super mathematical powers.
Yeah, that's always his gimmick. Mind you, Adric was Wesley Crusher before Star Trek The Next Generation invented Wesley Crusher. because for a lot of the season and a half he was in.
One at a time.
Was either the solution to the problem or the cause.
The more Doctor Who I watched, the more I think that The Next Generation was caused by an American just watching a whole bunch of Doctor Who and thinking, hey, we should bring Star Trek back and copy all these ideas.
Not impossible.
When I was watching this episode today, I've watched this episode a dozen times. I own it on DVD. This was the first time, though, I'd actually watched it with a critical eye. Other times I was just watching it for my fanboy nature. Going, oh yeah, I remember this episode. I remember crying when Adric died. Yeah. But I watched with a critical eye, and it's like, yeah. There's a lot here that pretty much says this was Doctor Who in the early 80s. First of all, the Space Force is seen as fairly gritty and slightly dystopian. This comes because the fact that there was another science fiction series around this time called Blake 7. And it had a very big influence on how the future was seen by many of the people that were writing and producing for Doctor Who. So a lot of the outfits had this kind of militaristic dystopian view to it, and you can see that all the way through to Peter Davidson's final episode. Where you have the military versus Shera's Jack in Caves of Androzani, and they're also that fairly grim, gritty, dystopian military style.
Have the mouth of a cackling jackalips, I believe was the phrase coined during that story. Something along that line.
And you can also tell by the music, a lot of the synthesizer music and everything.
Yeah, they started with synthesizer a lot.
It says this is early 80s science fiction. And it's true with Doctor Who. You can tell what era of Doctor Who you're watching just by listening to the incidental music.
Pretty much.
Well, you can also tell by the special effects, because in the late 70s they actually started adding explosions.
There are plenty in here. There's plenty of the gunshot effects, which were
there are plenty of sparks from pyrotechnics.
To the next encounter until they were upgraded for Silver Nemesis.
I don't know if it's just the implicit then. I kind of got the impression that the Pertwee era would have explosions.
Pertwee? They blew up models.
Yeah, they blew up models. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah.
Then it kind of died down, and then it came back again. Came back big time with Tom Baker. I remember a lot of models blew the hell up.
In Tom Baker's first episode, they have like a bunch of explosions set off.
It was also the Pertwee era that they started to add blue screening. Or they'd have the scene done in front of a blue screen and then fill in the background that way. And it's such an early attempt at blue screening that you look at it now and you're like, oh yeah, that's a blue screen. That's so an overlay. Yeah, can tell right now.
And you can also tell when they switched outdoor and indoor cameras, but that's another story.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in here. There's a lot of things in here that were like that. There's one thing that they had to do early in the second episode. It's because the fact that they knew that a lot of the people that were 14 or less that were watching Doctor Who, which was their target audience, didn't know who the Cybermen were entirely. They had to go through this little summary of the Doctor fighting the Cybermen. So they brought.
I think we discussed this briefly. It was a season premiere, wasn't it? Or no? No, maybe we discussed something else.
What?
But
I think that's something else. Yeah, I think that's something else.
I just remember thinking about it being one of those episodes that is a good way to get used to the idea of the Doctor regenerating. Not only do the companions mention it, but the Cybermen both mention it and show different variations of the Doctor.
But that's not what I was actually bringing.
Actually, I think Nash brought that up.
What I was bringing up was they were focusing on the fact that they recognized the Doctor by the TARDIS. It occurred to me as I was watching this that I don't think the Cybermen have actually ever seen the TARDIS.
Yes, they have. First Doctor.
They literally had to walk past.
it in order to get into the base.
Yes, were destroyed. I don't think any of them survived.
All those Cybermen were destroyed, but they knew what was happening because they showed scenes of Hartnell talking.
Yes.
They wouldn't have recognized that as being the TARDIS.
I'm sure they've seen it
once or twice during the second Doctor era. The third Doctor.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know if they saw it during the fourth Doctor.
The moon base, the TARDIS was landed off the moon base where everything happened. I only know this because I've read the book. The actual episode itself has been lost to history. Then I don't think the Cybermen showed up again until Tomb of the Cybermen, when the TARDIS materialized, it was away from the Telos main facility. Again, no seeing of the TARDIS there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Wheel in Space, and this is the one I'm not sure of. I have never seen this episode. I have never read the book summary. It's one of the few episodes I have not.
Wheel in Space, is that the one where they're,
I can't remember now which one this is.
Zoe, Matt.
The one where they pick up Zoe. I think I've seen tidbits of it. I can't say I've seen the entire episode.
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces. Oh yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of it as like an extra on a DVD or something.
Yeah, that's because the whole episode doesn't exist.
Which they need to fix.
They need to fix it for all the episodes. They need to have enough to reconstruct the lost episodes from.
All the audio's there.
Do the trick.
Literally all the audio's
out there. Just ask the fans.
If they don't have video, it's very hard to draw an approximation of what the video was based on three production stills from a half-hour piece.
Also helps if they had a script.
Anyway, I've just never managed to get that pocketbook episode, or the Target book episode of that. But I don't remember them thinking that they'd seen the TARDIS in that. That takes us to the invasion. Where the Cybermen came out of the sewers in London. They were in London in the 60s, and it was a police box.
Not to mention, I believe the
TARDIS in that particular storyline was actually made invisible.
So again, you see it. Revenge of the Cybermen. Where the TARDIS was still returning to their location, Space Station Nerva, from the future, and hadn't arrived until the very end of the last episode of the serial, making the Cybermen unable to have seen or recognized the TARDIS in that episode.
So they have seen it at least a grand total of once,
but with that once was the first time they encountered the Doctor.
Which would have just been a blue shed. They see the TARDIS from the image of the android, and David Banks goes, "I've seen this before. What is it? It is a TARDIS."
Now, I've noticed that you don't mention that the TARDIS index file mentions Cybermen appearing in Legopolis just a year before this. Would they have? I don't know to what extent.
No Cybermen in Legopolis.
This wiki is under the impression that they at least appeared.
Then that wiki's smoking crack.
Legopolis,
Legopolis? There's that was the fourth to fifth Doctor episode, wasn't it?
The final episode of the fourth Doctor.
Yeah, they've definitely been there.
Appeared in the making of that episode.
Was, either a hallucination or a flashback by the Doctor. Okay,
yes.
It says the visions of
yes.
That was his death flashback.
That was his death flashback.
His life flashed before his eyes and there were Cybermen.
Still from Revenge of the Cybermen.
Still from Revenge of the Cybermen.
And basically having the thing go.
Basically
Doctor.
having the thing go. Doctor.
That was it.
That was it.
Just like the Brigadier showed up.
Just like the Brigadier showed up, K9 showed up, Sarah Jane showed up, both Romanas.
So in other words, no, they did not get a chance.
A lot of things showed up in post.
Typically, it was just the montage of various bad guys going, Doctor,
In other words, no, they did not
Doctor,
get a chance to see the target.
and friends.
As the fight to regeneration
or just die
Here's
went
a
through the
question.
Doctor's
Is this
body.
one of those seasons where the writers would have been inclined to give a crap about whether or not Cybermen had appeared in comics or other things of that nature?
General rule for any production
Doctor Who serial is if it's appeared outside television,
It can't be a
it's
general
never
rule
mentioned.
because otherwise we never would have gotten the Dalek Emperor in an episode because that was introduced through comics.
What's that?
The Dalek Emperor.
What's that?
That was introduced in.
Power of the Daleks.
That was the second Doctor episode.
Or was it the third episode?
Or was it the third episode? Or third serial?
I think it was the second serial for the second Doctor.
No, the second serial had nothing to do with Daleks. The first and the third did.
I remember
Highlanders.
This must have been the first.
Highlanders, where he picked up
specifically
Jamie.
the Dalek handbook produced by the BBC mentioning that the Dalek Emperor was mentioned in other episodes, basically because it had appeared in the comics and fans would be able to make that connection.
But they never
reference what happened in the comics.
That's just the writers.
Basically, that's just the writers of the series that, Dalek Emperor's a good idea. We're going to steal that and put it in this episode.
But they don't
specifically say that the events of that comic book ever happened.
Yeah.
It's just him going, oh, that's kind of a good idea.
It's just him going, oh, that's kind of a good idea. We'll borrow that. Thank you.
It's just like if I was writing a science fiction series and, oh, wow, the idea of a super powerful, omnipotent being that wreaks havoc on my characters is a good idea. I like Q from Star Trek. Use him in this.
I just noticed we just spent how long discussing something. Doctor Who continuity has never been so strict that they would actually give a crap if the Cybermen had ever seen the TARDIS or not.
Yeah, still one of those things that I find to be a plot.
One of those things that I find to be a plot.
Because usually you and I see eye to eye on this, but I'm just thinking about it like, this is Doctor Who. Of all the things to talk about, this is probably not the thing the producers paid any attention to.
Probably not. It's just something I noticed.
Probably not. It's just something I noticed.
It was just them making cool connections back to old episodes. That's all it's really about.
Things that seem to be a first for the Cybermen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Cybermen, one, building androids that are not Cybermen, and two, going from not being in the show for years to all of a sudden having a massive fleet that is at war with multiple planets at once. Both of those kind of struck me a little surprising.
Being at war with a lot of people is not first.
Time travel?
Doctor Who,
We know
time
at some
travel,
point there's a massive
we
cyber
know at
war.
some point there's a massive
Okay.
cyber war.
So this was already established in
But
earlier
What's
serials?
that?
So you're saying this is
What's
already
that?
established in earlier serials?
Yes, Revenge of the Cybermen mentions
yes,
the fact
Revenge
that
of the
there's this
Cybermen
huge
mentions the
cyber
fact
war
that there's this huge
that
cyber
is
war
only ended when
that is only ended when
Planet
the Planet of Gold, Voga, gets involved and supplies the Allied forces with
ammo to make their
glitter guns, which
And of
basically
course,
makes the
this
cyber.
is the episode where the Cybermen try to prevent such an alliance from ever occurring.
Probably, yes. Although
Probably,
Yep.
yes.
the
Although
fact that they know what happens means that
the fact that they know what happens means that this would have to happen after that episode.
Or be something that was going
to be happening during this episode.
No,
And they're trying to
because they show images from Revenge of the
Yeah,
Cybermen.
Tom Baker's face.
They show Tom Baker's face.
Do you know what
leader
century
about them being a
Revenge
bunch
of
of.
the Cybermen is supposed to be set in?
That I actually didn't look up.
That I actually didn't look up. I'm not sure it was specified.
Main setting is 2875. So Revenge of the Cybermen is set after Earthshock.
And yet they show scenes, and yet the
Cybermen are not supposed to have time travel until Attack of the Cybermen.
Or random freighter bringing cargo to Earth had time travel. One of the two.
Well,
I find it easier
did because it would have back. That was screwing up. It was the hyperdrive screwing up.
Technically speaking,
that was their warp drive.
That was their warp drive messing up after they've only gotten part of a lockout.
Of the dinosaurs. I can't imagine the Millennium Falcon wouldn't have, discovered the Big Bang by now.
By becoming the Big Bang.
The way they explain it is the fact there is now an alien cyber system attached to the ship trying to keep it on course. While they're trying to make this adjustment, they've only gotten it partially unhinged.
And because of these two conflicting
orders, it makes the ship do the impossible.
This is Doctor Who. I can actually go.
This is Doctor Who. I can actually go with that.
And to be honest, I also go with the fact that the Cybermen and Earthshock could be time travelers, just that they don't really decide to mention it.
He could have just Sonicked it, and there would have been no problem.
Yeah, but hands-free by this point.
Actually, the fourth Doctor never Sonicked anyone.
Well, the thing is,
you have to remember for you later generation people, hey kids, get off my lawn speech number 6 coming. Is the fact that
not a multi-tool in the original series.
You can still use it as a sonic crowbar to say get off the ship. Get off this computer to whatever cyber device.
Possibly. The fact that it had some kind of logic lock on it,
he could have used the screwdriver to physically remove it, but
whether that would have caused the whole thing to
explode is another matter.
The Mark V could have made it get up and do the Macarena, but...
Basically, the entire function of the sonic screwdriver for the duration of the series was more or less a lock.
The other thing, the androids, was that a precedent here, or in terms of...
Androids were new, but having cybernetic or robotic things to use to scout out and attack people, not new.
Well, yeah, they had the cybermats before, but we never really knew what the cybermats were. They looked like little rats.
They looked like little...
But we didn't know whether it was an organic component to cybermats or not.
They looked like little robotic slugs to me, but yeah.
Yeah, without seeing them, basically got the impression of them being a cyberman.
Regardless of what you think they look like, there's no telling whether they were fully robotic or whether there was a bio component to those.
So yeah, the cyborgs
not completely new, but it's the first time they went for humanoid size.
Which kind
for
of
sure.
Yes. I don't know if it would be interesting to do a more in-depth look at the Cybermen of this era. Like, were they just so strapped for bodies that they had to build androids and didn't have enough, organic components to fuel their army, and they had to make androids for that? Or if there was something else involved with that?
It could just be that they were trying to make it look like it wasn't them.
It was
someone didn't manage to run away.
It was, in fact, the fact that they were trying to go for a low profile on Earth to set the bomb. Somebody sees a Cyberman on Earth, it's a big deal considering that they're the enemy.
If it's a cyborg, wow, it's just some
some random terrorists. Quick, kill the cyborgs.
Cyberman there who, had some sort of mask or, looked different than the, a stealth spy version of the Cybermen. I mean, surely they had the technology.
Yeah, but
then you also have the technology to make something that's a little less like a Cyberman, but still very easily controllable.
When you can have
So why risk it when you can have something that's very easily controlled?
And besides, from a writing standpoint, then you don't get to do the big reveal at the end of the first episode.
Deploy Cybermen. Why not only deploy androids and have the Cybermen sit back and watch?
And in fact, the big reveal is pretty much a standard Doctor Who plot.
I also love the fact that there was actually
originally a different title for this episode, but they went, no, that's giving it away. Stop that. We're calling it Earth something with Earth exploding. Earthshock. Yes. As a matter of fact, they even had to stop people from being able to publicly visit the Doctor Who sets in order to keep the fact that the Cybermen were in this episode a secret.
Yes, according to Wikipedia, you're
I
right.
heard about that.
Yes, according to Wikipedia, you're right, Matt. The working title for this story was Sentinel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they had to go. They were just going everywhere they could to try and keep this a secret. Although I think it was leaked
like about a week before the episode aired.
It came for naught for like about half.
So it came for naught for like about half the British public, but they managed to keep it for that long and caught everyone off guard just a week beforehand.
Actually, I think they kept it a rather surprise. The Radio Times wanted to do advanced publicity for it. John Nathan Turner told them no, which resulted in the fact that the Radio Times only gave one cover to Doctor Who during the entire tenure of John Nathan Turner from 8 to 89, and that was the 5 Doctors.
The big anniversary.
Yep, the big anniversary. Yep.
What
That one will let slip. It's a big one.
Well, I do think
that one will let slip. It's a big one.
Part of the story, like I can see why they did it. The whole spiel about the dinosaurs in the beginning of the first episode, it kind of makes sense once you've completed the serial. But in terms of just watching it as a linear story, I would say that is definitely the slowest, weakest, and most pointless part of the serial.
Well, yeah, it's kind of almost a Schrodinger's gun in a way.
But also they make mention a little bit of the cavemen, which was the second Hartnell story.
They're not really referencing that, Matt.
Maybe they're trying to pull
They kind of give a wink to it, though.
That's what I meant, Chekhov's gun. My brain is not.
That's what I meant, Chekhov's gun. My brain is not quite functioning.
Yeah, it's trying to do.
Sorry.
Not really a Chekhov's gun.
It's trying to do not really a Chekhov's gun,
book.
but I'd say more of a Chekhov's book.
Because it's not really so much a device or tool. That comes up at the end. It's more of a
this
story.
History happened. We have no reason to bring this up, but goddamn, it happened.
Should really go back and look at that someday.
I know there's
I made it happen.
I cannot remember the name of it. Which I know for shame.
Should know my tropes.
Mea culpa. I should know my tropes.
As I was watching the episode, it was getting to the end of the second serial. Can this get any more cliche?
Oh God. Can this get any more cliche?
Running around the cargo hold.
The doctor's running around the cargo hold, turns the corner, finds some dead bodies, and is immediately found by security. He did it.
We know better.
We know better.
Have I seen this in Doctor Who history?
Everywhere.
But in Doctor Who in particular, I can think of at least a half dozen Tom Baker serial
The Doctor's identity kind of lends itself to that. You know, he's always the hitchhiker. He's always the guy who's not where he's supposed to be. He's always going to get caught in bullshit and blamed as the outsider.
The king of bad timing.
The king of bad timing.
And of course, the TARDIS is pretty much out to get him when it comes to placing him in situations where he can get caught like that.
You've been reading that comic again, haven't you?
You've been reading that comic again, haven't you?
It is true, though. The TARDIS is sitting there, the Earth is going to explode. Let's go there, even though the Doctor wants to go to a tropical paradise. screw the tropical paradise. Earth is going to explode. Let's visit. I think if anything, really, the TARDIS is like the savior of humanity.
She just kind of places
time again.
Doctor there to get in trouble.
She just kind of places Doctor there to get in trouble and work things out.
But watching the acting of this, I think
the acting of this episode was fairly decent.
Acting-wise,
for the time that it was made.
Acting-wise, the only complaint I really had was actually the captain.
She
just didn't seem to fit that role very well.
Basic, the working captain who is, she's there to get her bonus.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to remember, Matt. This is not a Federation ship.
The thing you have to remember, Matt, this is not a Federation ship. This is not a military ship.
It's a freighter.
Yeah.
This
is
a freighter. It's essentially...
I would expect more rough and tumble out of a freighter.
I would expect more rough and tumble out of a freighter
pirates.
group, though.
We're not talking pirates.
Yeah, but still...
It's a freighter.
Semi-truck drivers of the universe.
It's like the freaking semi-truck drivers of the universe, dude.
I'm compare it to the similar group that we see in Alien and seeing if there's anything that I think one does better than the other.
I'm just saying they're the semi-truck drivers of the universe.
I'm just saying they're the semi-truck drivers of the universe. I think they'd be a little more rough and tumble than this. I think they would know way too much about
shotgun. I imagine this is probably at least tangentially related to budget, but I think that the way they talk about the crew would have been a little bit more effective if we saw like a few truck driver type crew members just, walking around bitching or complaining, or at least just physically being there.
They were the guards that got killed by the Cybermen.
We did. They were the guards that got killed by the Cybermen.
They talk about the crew as though there's
see them a little more often.
Probably a couple dozen. At least that's how I understood it. But we only see maybe, 5? I don't think we see even
6.
10. I don't think we see 10 people throughout the
Well,
entire
we do when we see the body pile-up at the end
Well, we do when we see the body pile-up at the end of them fighting the Cybermen trying to take the bridge.
True.
And then after that, they're all dead. So
I wouldn't be half surprised if half those guys were then there put in Cyberman suits. So yeah,
probably.
It would have been nice to see, one person with low morale.
Well, it would have been nice to have been seen like the rec room.
Well, it would have nice to have been seen like the rec room.
Or something.
The one problem with that is the problem that Doctor Who had in this area.
The one problem with that is the problem that Doctor Who had in this area. That would have meant hiring more people.
I mean, that's
and also getting more people.
Because movies never seem to have a problem. If you go out and put up a sign, you want to be an extra in Doctor Who, show up. Of course, then there's a security issue with an episode like this.
And also the fact that there is rules about that.
And also the fact that there is rules about that.
Is. Ask the Screen Actors Guild.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Ask the Screen Actors Guild.
You show up in an episode of something, you get paid.
You show up in an episode of something, you get paid.
And if you're not a member of the Screen Actors Guild, you're in trouble. You get sued.
Then you pay. You get sued.
The only clause is people that win contests.
Only clause that is that is people that win contests. And then they have to sign a waiver.
The episode, the contest where it's like...
the contest where it's like... Win a walk-in scene on this movie.
Like they have for like one of the Saw movies.
Sort of like they have for like one of the Saw movies. I think they had a TV show about that actually.
Yeah,
it was like some reality show where some chick got a role in like the 6th Saw movie or something.
There's this whole runaround about
but yeah, it is. There's this whole runaround about you having to sign a waiver to make sure that
you're not going to be credited in the credits.
You're not going to be credited in the credits. You're not going to be that. And that's the thing with the BBC. Anybody that shows up in the show gets credited. Even if you don't speak.
I thought I'd seen things with people
one of the things they talked about,
Attack of the Cybermen or Tomb of the Cybermen DVD.
Attack of the Cybermen or Tomb of the Cybermen DVD.
Cyber controller.
Talking with the guy that played the cyber controller was back when they were doing Tomb. The original role was all he had to do was open his mouth in time with the lyrics, and he managed to swing it past the Screen Actors Guild to opening his mouth constituted speaking words, and got himself upgraded to being paid for a speaking part.
So, yeah, whether you're on there for an unpaid or a
non-speaking or speaking role, you get paid.
And that does take you out, and
that does take you out, and that does cost them production money.
You're looking at a
when you're looking at Doctor Who, you're looking at a small, them doing things by small budget play roles.
Visible roles as possible.
So as few visible roles as possible.
I have to admit, as kind of tragic as Adric's
death is, I was kind of just like, womp 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 when he finally.
What annoys me
what annoys me about it. I mean, Adric was a companion.
He went through some hell.
He did his part. He went through some hell.
By the Master in Castrovalva.
He was freaking tortured by the Master in Castrovalva. Freaking do his bidding.
And yeah, he had kind of this whiny boy relationship.
And yeah, he had kind of this whiny boy relationship with the current Doctor in a few episodes. At one point, he sides with the bad guys in Fort of Doomsday. So he's had his ins and outs and all this problem, and he dies for no reason. I can see the heroic death of dying for a sacrifice.
He was trying to save the dinosaurs.
Yes, but when all the numbers are tumbled up, that death is still futile.
When all the numbers are tumbled up, that death is still futile. He died trying to prevent something that had to happen.
He died being right about being wrong.
He died being right about being wrong.
Which kind of sums up Adric in a way, but not in the good way.
In the good way.
Pretty much from the first few lines of this episode, it's pretty clear that he has a good chance of dying at the end. of the serial.
I want to go home. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty clear he doesn't have a good shot of surviving anyway.
Yeah.
He definitely put his effort in to make it a heroic death, but you can pretty much tell he wants to go back to East Base. The Doctor doesn't. It's too dangerous. He's going to die.
Yeah, but you notice about halfway through he said, yeah, I'm over that.
Yeah, but you notice about halfway through he said, yeah, I'm over that.
See if I could write it up.
I just wrote it up to see if I could write it up.
For the second half of it, he's back being part of the crew.
So, for the second half of it, he's back being part of the crew.
That cloud hanging over his head that he signed his own death sentence in the beginning of the serial. And that might not be as clear in the 80s, but in the age of TV tropes, that's pretty much what he did.
But when somebody is going to die, generally,
generally, especially like that, you usually make their death worthwhile. And that was, I think, what pissed people off the most was not the fact that he died.
He was doing his best to save 25th century, 9 billion people? That's who he was trying to save. He didn't.
Oh no, he knew he was back in time.
Did he?
Oh no, he knew he was back in time.
There was a scene.
Oh yes.
Where they knew they were drifting backwards.
There was a scene.
I don't know if he
where they knew they were drifting backwards in time. I don't know if he knew how far.
I know the Doctor knew they were drifting backwards
and back again.
Specifically how far.
Drifting backwards in time because he was trying to lock on. But
Doctor knew he was drifting backwards in time because he was trying to lock on. But mentions it, and
that's impossible. And like,
they're trying to figure out why the captain's going, but that's impossible. And everyone's like, look, you've got an alien device wired into your ship trying to take control.
Impossible happened.
Between that, something impossible happened.
Basically, from the moment the Doctor left that bridge with Tegan and the Cyber Leader,
Adric tries his best to act like the Doctor.
This is his moment to shine.
Which is pretty much a common
this is his moment to shine.
Not really at that point, no. This was his moment to shine.
Not really at that point, no.
He tries to do it.
This was his moment to shine. And he tries to do it,
gets himself killed,
and in the end, he gets himself killed, not even able to succeed in doing something that was inherently wrong in the first place.
I'm kind of glad they at least left in the Simon minute shooting it out, so it was like, well, even if he had, he can't now anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, I'll never know.
I last watched this a few weeks ago. I thought that he had succeeded, he had succeeded in solving it, but it was too late. He was too close to the ground, crashed, and died anyway. He never solved the problem.
He had just figured out what he thought was the solution to the final logic puzzle. He's about to enter it.
Was the solution to the final logic puzzle. He's about to enter it.
Half-damaged Cyberman verification,
up the corridor and a half-damaged Cyberman drags him up the corridor and shoots the computer.
Oh, because you know
making him unable to enter it.
He died pretty much of his own foolishness.
His last words is
so he died pretty much of his own foolishness.
His last words is him looking at the Earth coming up on him and going, well, now I'll never be able to know if I got it right.
What kind of wrecks the moment a tad is like...
What kind of wrecks the moment a tad is like... Or at least the fact that they don't go into music in the credits. Like, that's good, but... They have like this tiny little bit of music just before it goes to credits, so it's got this weird cut with the audio. And it's like... Probably should have left that whole last scene.
Well, I think the change to removing the music from that was done at the last minute.
I found that when I watched that the first time. I found that a bit
because I found that when I watched that the first time. I found that a bit jarring. That it just goes. There's a. It was playing silent mostly for that, and then it gets into this really sad music right near the end, and then cuts. As the credits start going, and it's like, probably could have cut that little bit of music out.
Okay, who was it that mentioned the parallel between this crew and the crew of Alien?
I think that was Bill.
You want to know the irony of that?
Pieces of scenery?
Several pieces of scenery were recycled and redressed from the Nostromo.
Also, digital readouts that were done in the
digital readouts that were done in the movie were seen on the monitors of the Nostromo originally, and were reused for this episode.
No, this means that the BBC was saving money by recycling props.
No, this means that the BBC was saving money by recycling props.
I like my solution better.
Because I guarantee you,
Alien was directed by Ridley Scott, a very popular
Alien was directed by Ridley Scott, a very
I kind of think a war between the Xenomorphs and the Cybermen would probably be the most epic episode ever.
Not really. Acid Blood, I think, would actually go through Cyberskin.
Not really. Acid Blood, I think, would actually go through Cyberskin.
Alien skin.
Possibly, yeah.
Xenomorphs versus Daleks, that I would like to see.
Now, Xenomorphs versus Daleks, that I would like to see.
Sure, the Daleks will be able to get the first wave, but will they be able to handle
Sure, the Daleks will be able to get the first wave, but will they be able to handle the second wave that comes immediately afterwards?
I'm just thinking the Daleks might... I'm just thinking the Daleks
and Acid Blood
might
equals they have at least one weakness against the Daleks.
No, see if there's enough aliens, no.
It would kind of depend on how long...
No, see if there's enough aliens, no.
It would probably kind of
they would be able to rush the Daleks eventually.
And also upon how they attack the Daleks too, because they don't always
attack from the open either. How they attack the Daleks too, because they don't always attack from the open either.
An entire planet populated by xenomorphs.
We have below an entire planet populated by xenomorphs, and we're down below. We're bringing one Dalek. Let's see who survives.
The xenomorphs are fucked.
Which Dalek are we using? The special weapons Dalek. The xenomorphs are fucked. What's that?
Have the Daleks ever destroyed a planet to exterminate someone?
What's that?
They destroyed a planet to exterminate someone. I don't think they destroyed entire planets for one person.
They haven't yet.
Oh, to destroy a certain species? Oh, I'm pretty sure they've done a couple of planets.
Oh, to destroy a certain species? Oh, I'm pretty sure they've done a couple of planets.
They've not done it on camera.
They've not done it on camera per se, but they have destroyed other worlds.
Not even Time War. They've probably done it off camera during
Not even Time War. They've probably done it off camera during the course, but you know, children's show not mentioned.
The Third Doctor era,
during the Third Doctor era, the Daleks have flunkies called the Ogrons.
Here's a
that
question:
look like
what would happen
giant
if a face hugger
gorilla
got
men
inside the Dalek casing?
I don't think it could find anything to face hug.
Or like
I don't think it could find anything
Dalek,
to face hug.
Yeah, Dalek was damaged. It opened up. The mutant was exposed to the air. A face hugger got in and became a Dalek alien inside the casing.
It also depends on what model Dalek too.
True.
It also depends on what model Dalek, too.
Then again, yeah, I'm like, considering how many, especially like, I'm kind of picturing this in my head as like a comic book, and a comic book writer would literally mutate the casing into some sort of giant xenomorph Dalek, which isn't what would really naturally scientifically happen, but it would be cool to see.
It makes no logical sense. No, it makes no sense at all.
It makes no logical sense.
No, it makes no sense at all.
Looks cool though.
Little black Dalek that spits all kinds of sticky drool and has
Little black Dalek that spits all kinds of sticky drool and has acid blood whenever you clip it.
I don't try to think about things like that, to be honest.
I keep the aliens and the Doctor Who universe separate, please.
I keep the aliens and the Doctor Who universe separate, please.
Gallifrey is still noble and pure.
Fan fiction.
Gallifrey is still noble and pure. If something like the alien menace popped up, the Time Lords would have said no.
Entire planets and threatened to overtake the galaxy.
Which does.
Kind of does. So you thought Rassilon would have gotten right on top of that,
Kind of does. So you thought Rassilon would have gotten right on top of that, man.
I've killed Arachnos.
I've taken care of the great vampires. I've killed Arachnos. Next I'm taking out the
Xenomorphs. When the
Xenomorphs.
people of Gallifrey elected Rassilon Emperor.
Maybe what
And
he
that's
did
when
was
the
just,
people of
maybe what he
Gallifrey
did was
elected
just
Rassilon
drop the
Emperor.
Yautja off on their home planet and let them run wild. Figured let them fight each other to death. Anyway, I think we're getting off topic.
Oh, we're very off topic.
I think we left topic.
We're very off topic.
Over
We-
the
We left topic somewhere back in the
I
country
mentioned
regions
the
over
production
beyond.
aside, and you kind of took it and...
I mentioned a production aside, and you kind of took it and drove it to Cleveland.
But yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, this was the first outing of David Banks.
So,
as the
as I
cyber
mentioned
leader.
earlier, this was the first outing
What do
of
y'all think
David
of David
Banks
Banks?
as the cyber leader.
I quite
I think
like
he
him
was
so
pretty good in
far.
there.
What'd you all think of David Banks?
I quite like him so far.
He is definitely pushing to get the Cybermen to be up there with the Daleks.
Because
He is definitely pushing to get the Cybermen to be up there with the Daleks.
Because I don't think anybody had as much influence on the Cybermen in the 80s as David Banks did. Do you agree with me on the fact that he's a large
For
ham?
an emotionless robot, yes.
He can be a ham, yes.
He has two catchphrases.
For an emotionless robot, yes. He's a huge ham.
He has two catchphrases he developed during the 80s. The first, of course, is excellent. The second is eradicate them.
For an emotionless cyborg, he was rather emotional.
Well, yeah. What was it that he said? It's like.
Well, yeah.
Somebody asked the doctor, are
what
they
is
all
it
this
that he
devoted?
said is
And
like-
I think the doctor says, you know,
Somebody asked the
compared to some
doctor,
of
are they
them,
all
he's
this
downright
devoted?
flippant.
And I think the
Yeah.
doctor says, you know, compared to some of them, he's downright flippant.
Wasn't revenge one of his motivations for trying to take the doctor alive?
A tiny
Yes.
hint of revenge.
Actually, yeah, that's the only reason you would
A
ever want to
tiny
take the
hint
doctor
of
alive.
revenge,
is
yeah.
If you
They're-
followed
if you-
logic dictates destroy the Time Lord before he destroys
Yeah.
you.
It's kind of one of the problems I have with the Cybermen in the
Yeah.
80s.
It's
is
kind
that
of one of the
go
one
through
problems
and
I
they're
have with the
claiming to be
Cybermen in
these
the 80s.
emotional or
Is they're
emotionless logical
go through and they're
machines.
claiming to be these emotional
And they
or
act
emotionless
like
logical
a
machines,
stereotypical Bond villain.
and they
Yeah,
and they
but then,
act
I mean,
like your
you see that-
stereotypical
that's
Bond
all-
villain.
I mean, there's probably a trope for it. You see that often enough that things will claim to be completely emotionless until, you put revenge within their grasp, and all of a sudden you see, just how much emotion they don't believe they have.
Maybe all their emotional inhibitors.
It's one thing
got messed up.
Maybe all
from
their
the
emotional
2000s
inhibitors
era
It's one thing
Cybermen.
got messed up.
From the
You
2000s
don't get-
era Cybermen,
You don't get any actual expression of emotion.
you don't get you don't get any
but you
actual
also have to
expression of
remember there's supposed to
emotion.
be something of a human still kind of squiggling
Yeah,
around
but you
there.
also have to
I mean,
remember
you
there's
can
supposed
see
to
the
be
mouth
something of
move
a
a little bit
human
on
still
these
kind of
older ones.
squiggling around
You
there. I
see
mean,
a
you
little
can
bit
see the
organic
mouth
shit
move a
when
little bit on
they
these
talk.
older ones.
Yeah, I know.
You see a
Yeah,
little
that
bit of the
freaks
organic
me out a
shit
bit.
even when they talk.
I quite like
Yeah,
that.
I know. Actually, that kind of freaks me out a bit.
Cybermen suits.
I quite liked it. I thought that was actually a good effect.
Of
Is
the
the
80s
fact that I
Cybermen
stopped watching
suits
the Cybermen suit, I just start watching the chin.
is the fact that I stopped watching the
Because there's
Cybermen
something
suit.
still
I just
alive
start
in there
watching the
that's kind
chin.
of a freaky image if you
because there's something still alive in there, and that's kind of a freaky image if you really think about it.
Such low budget.
Although one thing,
Which is actually very
kind
awesome
of,
for such low budget.
It kind of weakens the point of the Cybermen to me, like in things like, I believe the Pandorica Open, that's supposed to be a Mondas Cyberman, but you can see it perfectly functioning with no organic parts. So it's like, okay, at that point you're defeating the purpose of a Cyberman and just becoming a race of androids.
No, they should have still had the organic brain. They should have still had the organic brain.
About, like, the detached
in the Pandorica
Well, I
Opens,
think
though,
he's
the one
talking
that had
about
been-
like the
it had
detached
been on guard so
Cyberman
long
head.
that its organic parts had died, the head had come off and everything else, and it was just looking for a new host, but at the same time shooting things and fulfilling all of its purpose.
Yeah, okay, I had forgotten
And
about
actually
that.
opened up the head and a skull popped out, and it was still.
Yeah, okay, I had forgotten about that. I think I'd repressed that.
About that, Bill?
Yeah.
Moffat.
But you want to know what else about that, Bill? Moffat.
Just
Moffat.
That's our problem.
Another thing I noticed
Just
about this,
Moffat.
noticing that this was
That's our
now
problem.
80s
Another thing I
production
noticed
Doctor Who
about this, noticing that this
was
was
the fact
now
that
80s
you got to
production
see
Doctor
corpses.
Who,
and
was
not
the
just
fact
any
that
corpses,
you got to see corpses.
but rather gross,
And not just
disgusting
any
remains
corpses,
after the androids shot
but rather
I'm
gross,
gonna have to
disgusting
rewatch that.
remains
I don't-
after the androids shot
Yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, you got to
This
see the
was
puddles of
part
squick.
of what
Yeah.
started happening that started to get complaints
This
against
was
Doctor Who
part
by certain
of
parties.
what started
in the
happening that
80s.
started to get complaints against Doctor Who by certain parties in the 80s.
Yeah, but if this was the point that this stuff started showing up frequently.
Yeah, but if this was the
that,
point that this stuff started showing
I'm
up
trying to remember
frequently.
the name of this person.
Shoot,
That,
it's the 80s, they're lucky that someone wasn't...
Oh, I'm trying to remember the name of this
that there weren't-
person.
Yeah, boobs and blood all over the place.
Even
I believe even
brain farting on his name.
now I'm
Davison actually brought it up
brain
a couple
farting on
of
his name.
times.
I believe here Davison actually brought it up a couple of times in things I've heard him talk about, and he's like, "Do I believe that TV violence encourages kids to actually do real world violence? Hell no."
That would actually be kind of
Like
awesome.
a straight up either like a slasher film or a haunted
That
house
would actually
film
be
or
kinda
something,
awesome.
where the Daleks are the main villain. Like that would
Just think Alien.
it would work perfect. Yeah,
With Daleks.
Alien
Well,
with a Dalek.
Just think
Part of the
Alien
problem, the estate of Terry
with
Nation.
Daleks.
Well,
Mm.
part of the
As this
problem,
moment, we
the
will
estate
never
of
see
Terry
Daleks
Nation.
outside of Doctor Who.
As of this
Unless
moment,
you
we
can
will never
convince
see
Terry
Daleks
Nation
outside of
otherwise.
Doctor Who.
Terry Nation's dead.
Unless you can
The
convince
lawyers
Terry
behind-
Nation
The
otherwise.
lawyers have
Terry
stated
Nation's
that at
dead.
this point, they are
I
only
mean, the
going to be
lawyers
using
behind
Daleks
what
in
The
Doctor
Doctor
lawyers
Who.
have
How
stated
long
that
does
at
it
this
have to
point
go
they are
before the
only
Daleks
going
go
to
into
be
the
using the
public?
Daleks in
Well,
Doctor
years
Who.
after Doctor Who does, obviously. but-
It would be at least 2063.
It would be at
The way
least
Disney keeps
2063.
beating licenses and
Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's the problem.
The way
but, yeah,
Disney
British
keeps
copyright
beating
and
licenses and
American
Yeah,
copyright
that's
aren't
the
necessarily
problem.
tied together.
No, it's still, though, public domain is still 100 years, generally.
No, it's still,
For
though,
concept.
public domain is
Not
still
for an
100 years,
individual
generally.
film.
For concept,
For a likeness.
not for individual films.
yes,
100
for
years.
having his likeness. Their likeness, yes.
yes, for having
Of
his
course, if I
likeness.
put a salt
Their
and pepper
likeness,
shaker
yes.
in a movie and had someone just mysteriously die in front of it,
Actually, I'm not even sure it's 100 years. The estate of Arthur Conan Doyle
Actually, I'm not
is still,
sure it's 100 years. The estate of
and
Arthur
people slap
Conan
lawsuits
Doyle
on
is
people
still
that use Sherlock Holmes without permission.
managing to slap
And how does the
lawsuits on
asylum
people
get
that
away with
use
it?
Sherlock Holmes
that?
without
and how
permission.
does the asylum get away with it?
What's that?
Dude,
Flying under the radar. I know the fact that Star Trek: The Next
I do.
Generation.
Flying under the radar. I know the
had a
fact
couple
that
of Sherlock Holmes
Star Trek:
inspired
The Next
episodes
Generation
on the holodeck,
had a
and
couple
they
of
got
Sherlock
slapped with a
Holmes
lawsuit.
inspired episodes on the holodeck, and they got
So
slapped
that
with a lawsuit.
estate, as of 1987, was still slapping lawsuits.
So that estate,
well,
as of
I'm not
1987,
sure.
was
Maybe
still
they did
slapping
pay them off.
lawsuits.
Maybe it depends upon how
Well,
much money you throw
I'm
at
not
it.
sure. Maybe
Here's
they
the
did pay
question.
them off.
Are-
Maybe it
Are the fire
depends upon how much money you throw at
extinguisher
it.
guns from the live-action movies part of that copyright, or only the actual
I think those were
lasers
actually
from?
meant to originally throw real fire until someone
They were.
actually went
I think those were actually meant to originally throw real fire until someone actually went, you could hurt somebody with that.
Obviously, Daleks shooting lasers are part of the main copyright, but how about Daleks shooting, fire extinguishers?
Just the fact that you have Daleks there in general, Bill.
Of course,
if you have a Dalek,
just the fact that you have Daleks there in general, Bill. I believe.
Yeah, if you have a Dalek shape.
Of course, I understand that. Once
with
again,
a gun.
It's my fault that we have drifted horribly.
And plunger.
Yes, because you go sideways.
I do. That's kind of the way my brain works.
Yes, it is.
Because you go sideways.
That's why people find it hard people used to find it extremely hard to just have a simple conversation with me because I wouldn't explain the sideways my brain was traveling.
I don't explain where my brain goes, I just follow it.
Yeah.
Go, ooh, look at the shiny.
It's
I
now a
don't
little
explain
easier
where
to
my
have a
brain goes. I
conversation
just
with me
follow
as long as
it
you don't try to go
and go,
into
ooh,
it
look at the shiny.
So, what did bring us off topic?
You trying to make Dalek stuff.
Was it Dalek? No, I don't think it was. Was it Dalek
You trying to
versus
make
aliens or
Dalek
something else?
stuff.
Oh no! God damn
Dalek
it!
aliens.
Cybermen.
Dalek aliens.
But yeah, going backwards. Where did we leave off?
Man,
I don't know.
going
I had asked you
backwards.
your opinion on David
Where
Banks,
did
and that got
we
onto
leave
Cybermen
off?
I don't know.
costumes.
I had asked you your opinion on
And I
David
think we started
Banks, and
going
that got onto
sideways from there.
Cyberman costumes.
I don't remember about.
And I think we started going sideways
that
from
we're
there.
We're talking about the face mask. and
I don't
the,
remember
the
about going on about Cyberman costumes. Maybe that
You're
was.
talking about the face mask and the fact.
Oh yeah, I did mention creepy
Jin moving.
moving. Yes.
I don't.
That's actually the one
honestly
thing I
don't.
wish they would have kept for the newer Dalek.
I don't. I honestly
Not the
don't.
squick of it, Matt. It distracts
Come on,
me
we
from
could use a
watching
little
the
extra
rest of it 'cause
squick.
I'm
They can
watching
handle
the
it.
That's not the squick of it, Matt. It distracts me from watching the rest of it because I'm watching the chin.
There's something still alive in there.
There could
There's
be,
something still alive
a
in there.
dozen people dancing naked in the
There could be,
background. I
you know,
wouldn't notice 'cause I'm
A
watching
dozen
the
people
freaking chin.
dancing naked in the background. I wouldn't notice because I'm watching the freaking chin.
Just to me.
You're easily
Not that distracting.
persuaded away by it.
Just
I
to
think
me.
that's why they made that more opaque
You're
on
easily
the non-leader
persuaded
models
away by
in
a
later
simple
I think that's why they
episodes,
made
like
that
Attack.
more opaque on the non-leader models in later episodes, on like Attack.
Throughout this episode.
Actually, I think that was
there's
kind of
technical
partially due to the
difficulties
fact
with
that they made it
costume.
opaque throughout this episode because there's technical difficulties with the costume. Like at one point, the voice modulator actually has a device in the helmet and it slid down next to his chin at one point. So they sprayed
always
something
had those
opaque
issues.
and then they kind of covered his chin with some extra stuff just for the sake of doing something there.
They've always had issues like that, Matt. I know that during the Five Doctors,
They used
they
it.
were wearing moon boots, and apparently they would get caught in the fog that they were filming in, and they wound up walking around with like plastic bags on their feet.
This is the first time they used this model, so this is the first time that I had those technical difficulties.
But again, this is the first time they used this model, so this is the first time they had those technical difficulties.
Oh yeah, but even when you go up to like Silver Nemesis, where they've only done a slight redo of those, they had somebody that the wire for the microphone for or the earpiece for him. The wire had not gotten the insulation on it. So he had been caught in the helmet while the thing cut into his ear. And he's sitting there screaming and there's blood pouring out of the side of the helmet and they're trying to get it off and it's stuck. I heard this horror story from the making of Silver Nemesis.
Why is Dr. Who just
Which, by the way, you can watch on YouTube if you look for it.
Because of those many horror stories and the constant squick that old school actually had.
Because of those many horror stories and the constant squick that old school actually had, even for low budget.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about the bloody puddle that was the corpse of the...
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you hadn't seen that before in Doctor Who, at least not in such absolute detail. I mean, at one point you can see the bloody puddle and you can see something that used to look like it might have been flesh, and you can see the person's name tag in the puddle.
Yeah, you can see the grotesque bubbling going on.
Yeah, and it's just, you're looking at that and, you almost want to lose your lunch.
Watch this. Let me put it that way.
I'm glad I
That is very good for the low budget.
watched this. Let me put it that way.
For such a low budget.
I will continue to note that that's pretty darn good for such a low budget.
I don't know if she's still
Yes.
active or not.
But
Her name
there
is
was
Mary
there was
Whitehouse.
this lady at the time. I don't know if she's still
And
active
she
or not.
was a
Her name is
political
Mary
activist,
Whitehouse.
Conservative political activist in
And
England.
she was a political activist,
during
conservative
the late
political
70s
activist in
and
England.
early to mid 80s.
During
And
the
apparently,
late 70s
somewhere
and early
along
to
the-
mid
along
80s.
this area is the point that
And
Dr. Who got
apparently,
put on her radar.
somewhere along
And I
along
don't
this
think they
area
managed
is the
to have
point
an
that Doctor Who
episode
got
through
put
the
on
Peter
her
Davidson
radar.
era that didn't have Mary Whitehouse
And I don't
calling
think
them
they
up.
managed to have an episode
If
through
they
the
did,
Peter
it's
Davidson
probably
era that
Black
didn't
Orchid,
have
but
Mary
I
Whitehouse
think
calling them up.
She called them on that one too.
If they did, it was probably Black Orchid, but I think she called them on that one too.
But it was, stuff like that.
It's called
that
nitpicker's
eventually,
disease.
But it was, stuff like that eventually,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I remember.
They're trying to show you they could do more, but you keep trying to limit them.
Blood all over the screen.
Oh, she died in 2001, so. Yeah, she was big on.
she died in 2001, so.
Just like that. Another thing that she had.
Yeah, she was
issues
big
with,
on
and I think this was
censor,
one of the first times we saw this.
just like that.
So
Another
at the
thing
very
that
end
she
of
had
the
issues
episode,
with, and I think this was one of the
after
first times we saw this,
used,
at the very end of the
Adric's
episode,
gold star for mathematical
after he
excellence
had,
and scraped it off into
used
the chest plate of the
Adric's
cyber
gold
leader,
star for mathematical
the doctor
excellence
winds
and
up
scraped
grabbing
it off
his gun
into the chest plate of the cyber
and
leader.
shooting the cyber
The
leader
doctor
until
winds
he's
up
dead.
grabbing his gun
Oh, and then a second Cyberman
and
as well.
shooting the cyber leader until
No,
he's dead.
that was Nisser.
Oh, and then
Tegan
a
who shot the
second Cyberman as well. Actually, no, I
He
think
was
Oh
the
no,
fans
busy
shot
trying
the
that was
second.
rescue
Nisser Tegan
Adric.
that shot the second
The
Cyberman.
TARS
And failing because
He was busy
console
trying to
damaged.
rescue Adric
I'm trying to get the TARS
and
to
failing
stabilize.
because the
This was the
console
first
was
time
too
I think we'd
damaged.
actually seen the doctor pick
But,
up a gun and use it.
This was the first time I think we'd actually seen the doctor pick up a gun and use
And
it.
did people used to argue that
Actually
apparently
use it,
he
yes.
never has?
Yeah.
Oh, hell, never even held one.
And yet people used to
No,
argue
he
that
used a
apparently he
gun
never
during a dog
has.
episode.
Oh, hell,
no,
never
no,
even
wait, no.
held one.
No,
Really?
he used
Yeah,
a
he
gun
vaporized
during a
one of the
dog
Dalek
episode
lackeys.
during the Third Doctor.
Really?
Yeah,
I
he
remember
vaporized
this.
one of the
I've never
Dalek
seen that
lackeys.
episode. It's John Pertwee, so quite frankly, John
I
Pertwee
remember
gets away
this.
with
I
it.
remember seeing that episode.
Well, yeah,
It's John
That's
Pertwee, so
one of
quite
those
frankly,
episodes
John
I hadn't
Pertwee gets
seen.
away with it.
He's Action Doctor, he gets away with
Well,
it.
yeah, he is the
Sounds like
Yeah,
one of those
Pertwee was the one
episodes
who
I hadn't
taught James
seen.
Bond how to regenerate.
He's Action Doctor. He gets away with it.
It only exists because John Pertwee.
It's easy.
It only exists because John Pertwee.
Anyway,
Anyway,
but yeah, at this point is when you start seeing this darker turn in Doctor Who.
but yeah, at this point is when you
And
start
it's
seeing this darker
what
turn
Led
in
people
Doctor
to
Who.
see, it started
And
what led to
it's
it being
what
canceled.
led people to
And
see
the 85, 86
it started to
season.
what led to it being canceled in the 85-86
Don't
season.
dark show, dang it.
It's rubbish.
And eventually, when it was restarted in
Don't dark
'87,
show, dang it.
word from on high was lighting
And
up on that
eventually,
kind of
when
stuff.
it was
Which is why
restarted
when
in
you had the,
'87,
Seventh Doctor
word
start
from on
with
high
all
was
spoons
lighting
and
up on that kind of
slapstick.
stuff. Which is why when you had the Seventh Doctor start, he was
Until they
all
decided that
spoons
really
and
didn't work.
slapstick.
But you can almost see the start of it
Until they
here.
decided that really didn't work.
And it gets progressively
So
worse.
you can
throughout
almost
the
see the start of it
Davidson
here.
run through the next couple of
And
seasons.
it gets progressively
really
worse
culminating,
throughout
I
the
think,
Davidson
in,
run through the next
Resurrection
couple
of
of
the Daleks.
seasons. Really culminating, I think, in Resurrection of the Daleks.
Lots of boom.
Oh yeah, Resurrection was the big one.
Which I think
Yeah.
was another soured
Lots of
episode.
boom.
I've never watched
Which
that
I
episode.
think
That
was
episode's
another
awesome.
soured episode.
Although they cut some stuff.
I've never watched that episode. That episode's awesome.
They actually
Although they
cut
cut some
off
stuff.
of the speech between the Doctor and Davros in that episode.
They actually cut off a bit of
Who
the speech
wrote
between
this?
the Doctor
this
and
was an Eric
Davros.
Soured episode,
That
and
episode.
it's Eric Soured episodes that get that
Who
particular
wrote
kind
this?
of.
Yeah, this was an Eric
gritty
Soured episode. And
gumminess.
it's Eric Soured episodes that get that particular kind of gritty gumminess.
They should have had more of his
Actually, no, I'm not as fond of his teaching style.
In other words, he's awesome. They should have had more of his
Actually,
episodes.
no, I'm not as fond of his teaching
I
style.
read one of his Doctor Who books that he wrote.
I've read one of his Doctor Who books that he wrote.
Stuff in there that was kind of
That was, an original. And yeah, there was some stuff in there that was kind of twisted.
Resurrection of the Daleks, so you can almost tell it's that same gritty
Yeah,
style.
Soward also wrote Resurrection of the Daleks, so you can almost tell it's that kind of that same gritty style.
Look at the helmet, like the guards.
Little children working for the Daleks. That's not entirely.
Look at the helmet, like the guards that are going down in the tunnels are wearing in the first episode. And later, you'll see these same helmets recycled to be used by the cast of Airwolf.
But yeah, he likes the kind of the Gestapo look for his soldiers.
But yeah, he likes the kind of the Gestapo look for his soldiers.
In the first episode of Earthshock, there's that bit where there's always something
I
like
find it funny that in the first episode of Earthshock, there's that bit where there's always something like that in every I'd say pretty much everything sci-fi where it's kind of like, oh, what's this flashing thing? This probably means something. Nah, let's not tell anyone until shit gets real.
It's just like, oh
this has been
happening.
happening.
It's flashing. It's like, is that important?
It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, this thing had been flashing. It's like, is that important?
Something's flashing. Oh, it's a bomb.
Well, yeah.
If you
It's always kind of funny, but
if you disable every bomb.
Well, yeah. It's like it's always kind of funny, but yeah. It's like.
Or at least the first episode would have ended faster.
Oh, that's what I read.
Or at least the first episode would have ended faster.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I read. The novelization of the 1985 radio play Step Back. Yeah. That was a little, yeah.
Yeah, his writing style is dark and a bit gross.
Yeah, his writing style is dark and a bit gross.
Really.
He's very dystopian, almost cyberpunk in his writing style.
He's very dystopian, almost cyberpunk in his writing style.
For Cybermen, it's actually not a bad thing, to be honest.
Which again, for Cyberpunk, actually, for Cybermen, it's actually not a bad thing, to be honest.
A bit.
He definitely helps lend more menace to the Cybermen themselves. A bit.
I don't
know. Otherwise, you could get too used to these robots.
Great on me.
To be honest, otherwise you just get too used to Cybermen. They're just robots. No.
To be honest, I always just get too used to Cybermen. They're just robots. No. There's something else to be more horrified inside of those quote-unquote tin cans.
And it bled and flesh came out.
No, because there's not enough of that left.
Depends on where you kill them.
No, because there's not enough of that left.
Watch the 6th Doctor episode, Attack of the Cybermen.
Before you do this, watch the 6th Doctor episode, Attack of the Cybermen.
Under various stages of cyber conversion.
The cyber controller's room, you can look at people under various stages of cyber conversion.
Cyber converted and failed.
And you deal with some people that were partially cyber converted and
failed. I hope it makes a little bit
failed.
more sense than Cyberwoman.
It does.
The limbs.
A bit. I don't really think they explain those two guys very well, do they?
Ooh, Biggs and Stratton.
I don't really think they explain those two guys very well, do they?
Ooh, Biggs and Stratton?
I don't think they were actually human.
Who that were starting to convert, but they never mentally converted.
Well, I don't think they were actually
just
human.
The process did not work on them for whatever reason.
For a start, yeah, I guess.
But it was just the process did not work on them for whatever reason.
I'm trying to remember because I have not actually watched this episode in a few years.
Again, I'm trying to remember because I have not actually watched this episode in a few years. I used to have it on tape when I taped it off of PBS. And I have not had my tape collection in almost a decade.
I haven't seen that episode in at least 3 to 4 years, so yeah, it's been a little while, so then it's probably, I only watched it once, so it's a little foggy to me too.
But, yeah, I like watching that one, and I like watching the Soward
But yeah, I like watching that one, and I like watching the Soured Resurrection of the Daleks because there's, it's the character Lytton
which, by the way,
gets his beginning in one and his end in the other.
Partially cyber converted.
Which, by the way, is how Lytton ends. He's partially cyber converted.
Make a compelling, effective story would be if a companion ended up being fully converted to a Cyberman, and the Doctor had to put them out of misery.
In the audio dramas.
That was actually done in the audio dramas.
Cyberman winds up meeting the Cyber Queen.
The Doctor winds up going into the far future of the Cybermen, winds up meeting the Cyber Queen, which turns out to be the future version of his companion. Oh God, what the heck was her name?
Was she a TV companion or an audio?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, she's an audio.
I suddenly cannot remember her name.
She's a.
Was she with?
Yeah, it was. Doctor? Yeah, she's an audio exclusive Doctor. She's a.
I think I actually have a.
Was she with the Sixth Doctor?
Of one of their
only
stories.
in the audios.
Yeah, I think I actually have a DVD with images of one of their stories.
Hang on, I'll have her name in a moment.
Hang on, I'll have her name in a moment.
She's a professor that winds up traveling with the Doctor in the audio dramas. But,
she's a professor that winds up traveling with the Doctor in the audio dramas.
Oh, then again, we do have a companion who potentially turns into a Dalek.
The one where this happened was actually one that was done for the BBC website.
The one where this happened was actually one that was done for the BBC website
a while ago, and it's not on there anymore, I don't think.
A while ago, and it's not on there anymore, I don't think.
The BBC's Doctor Who website used to have a lot of cool stuff on there.
Which kind of sucks, because the BBC's Doctor Who website used to have a lot of cool stuff on there.
The aborted Ninth Doctor
copies
animated
of books.
series. This was
the aborted Ninth Doctor animated series.
Made one episode, and
this
then
was Richard E. Grant as the Ninth Doctor. Made one episode, and then the new series was announced.
Oops.
I remember saying, I think it was the first mention of Earthshock that I remember was when
I remember saying, I think it was the first mention of Earthshock that I remember was when Nash reviewed the story after this, and the main problem he had with it was that they just sort of go, alright, well that was tragic, oh well, let's go and have some fun somewhere.
Let's try to get over this by going to somewhere fun and then going off on some random adventure, completely forgetting about Adric ever again.
Well, the next episode that's after this is Time Flight, which is the conclusion to the 19th season. It really should have been bumped to the 20th season, really, because Earthshock should have been the conclusion. This was worthy enough to be a season finale.
Well, yeah, that seems like you would want to do that. You would want to end a companion's death as the last episode of a season.
Because if you had left the 19th season on Adric's death.
Because if you had left the 19th season on Adric's death.
Heathrow Airport,
that would have been more of the, hey look, Tegan finally got to Heathrow Airport, which was
so it wasn't let's go someplace
pretty much
fun.
Time
it's
Flight.
Like, okay, Tegan, you're now where you finally wanted to go.
So it wasn't let's go someplace fun, it's like, okay, Tegan, you're now where you finally wanted to go.
She did show up again next season.
Get out.
Whether or not we'll see you next season, we're undecided.
Having lost her job.
And she did show up again next season.
A story or two in.
After having lost her job.
Tegan's life really sucks.
Her life kind of tends to suck.
Tegan's life sucks.
Meets the Doctor.
Tegan's life really sucks. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but she starts in Logopolis where she loses her Auntie Vanessa to the Master's shrink doll making ray, whatever the hell you want to call it, her eliminator.
Falls off the top of
Afterwards, the guy that she just met, who unfortunately had the new patellar, falls off the top of a freaking space radio telescope, changes into a younger guy.
Finds out an alien race of frogmen.
Then she's caught in this recursive time loop. Finds out an alien race of frogmen are basically trying to basically end the world. Gets her mind invaded by a malicious spirit.
Winds up with her friends indirectly causing the Great Fire of London.
A malicious spirit with a god complex.
Winds up with her friends indirectly causing the Great Fire of London.
Spends a little time in the 1920s. And then loses one of the few companions she has to
spends a little time in the 1920s. And then loses one of the few companions she has to dying to the Cybermen.
Rejoining the crew.
Before getting let off, spending a year, getting her cousin killed, rejoining the crew, losing her other friend who decides to stay and fight disease, having to team up with this dick
for most of that.
by the name of Turlo.
Getting trapped by your...
Yeah, he was a dick for most part.
He was a dick for most of that. Getting trapped by the doctor's own people in a death trap.
Earth gets shot up by Daleks. She was
And then watching a few friends you just made back on 1984 Earth get shot up by Daleks, she was basically like, okay, I'm done. Stick a fork in me.
Yeah, I think that was actually the first serial I saw with Tegan in it was the one she left in Resurrection of the Daleks, and it was the fact that she's just like, okay, yeah, I can't take any of this anymore. I don't care if I'm in the right location, I'm gone. It sort of runs off.
And the Doctor's kind of like, yeah, kind of left home too because of the exact same reasons.
Mostly because, you know, the first
Tegan was always the snipey one too. Mostly because, you know, the first season spent with the Fifth Doctor, he's trying to get her home, and fails every single time.
Usually the companions are like, okay, we'll deal with it.
But, you know, usually the companions are like, okay,
I think Ian and Barbara got a little
we'll deal with it.
vindictive during a
Tegan got vindictive.
At least early on.
Not like Tegan.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Tegan.
The evil spirit entity in the back of her brain came out a second time.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Oh, not to mention the evil spirit entity in the back of her brain came out a second time.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if she had wound up with a
She
fear
just has a
snake.
problem with snake spirits.
You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if she had wound up with a fear of snake.
Gets home, and the first thing she sees is a family member holding out a snake above her, and hits the ceiling.
She never used to act that way.
Pops out the house, screaming bloody murder. She never used to act that way to snakes before.
Yeah, her run of the show sucked.
Yeah, her run of the show sucked.
It was all really truly about her character.
Yeah, no.
She had a horrible time if it was all really truly about her character.
He was the script editor for like when she ended.
And I largely blame Soward. Just personally. He was the script editor for like when she ended.
So yeah, part of his view kind of bled through into some of the other episodes.
Just FYI,
So yeah, part of his view kind of bled through into some of the other episodes.
Wrap up the official part of this soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this episode as much as we can.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have your conclusions on it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this episode as much as we can.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have your conclusions on it,
The new Starman
based on what we've talked about.
Upgrade. The plot more or less ran pretty decently. I thought
The new
they
Starman
tried to
upgrade
cover
was
the
a
bases
nice
as well as they
upgrade.
could.
The
I
plot
would
more or
only
less
say
ran
that
pretty
there's
decently, I thought, and they
bad
did try to
actor
cover
here
their
or
bases as
there,
well
but
as they could.
Completely hampered the
I would only say
episode.
that there's a bad actor here or there, but they didn't completely hamper
a little
the
bit new of a light,
episode.
trying to see, you know, how this would be the first Cyberman episode, and the only issue I see is I don't think they really get into detail of what the Cybermen are other than being horrible and technological, which I guess is sufficient, but they could probably have gone into a little bit more of what a
Well,
Cyberman
they were
is.
only really trying to update the Cybermen for the 80s, not necessarily wanting to go through a whole new episode on what they were.
Well, they were only
where they
really
came
trying to
from.
update the Cybermen for the 80s, not necessarily wanting to go through a whole new episode on what they were, where they came from.
Although they do hint at them being more than just robots a couple of times.
Explain, you know, they used to be human. Would have, you know.
Well, no, they were never human. Not in the original Doctor Who canon.
They were from another planet.
Well, no, they were never humans.
Yeah,
Not in the original Doctor Who canon.
Queen of Earth that
they were from another planet of human-like beings.
I'm not as up to, you know.
Mondazian. Use the term Mondazian. At least that way we know they're not Earthlings.
Mondazian. Use the term Mondazian. At least that way we know they're not Earthlings.
Mondazian humans there.
The kind of issue I had with this is that I probably would have been
I think the only kind of issue I had with this is that
but just the fact that his death is
I probably would have been a bit more annoyed if I'd seen more of Adric beforehand, but just the fact that his death is just a bit of a wah-wah kind of moment.
I mean, this serial, I still think it was a fairly decent serial. If I would say if Adric really did know that he was only trying to save the dinosaurs, it does color that ending a little differently for me, and I'd have to rewatch it to really let that sink in.
I don't think the people on the ship